All right, good evening, everybody. So I haven't done one of these in a while. So let me tell you a little bit about Cellufun. It's a avatar gaming site. I've used it for years. Um, and I think a lot of people, much like myself, guilty as charged, may have used it for purposes other than just gaming. We're all guilty of that. And mind you, I'm one of those polar people you either like or you hate. I've always been that way. I'm an acquired taste, which means if you don't like me, you got to acquire some taste. So let's get into the chat, shall we? And my computer freezes. Okay, so share this. So here I am in the chat. This is a Cellufun Mall chat. They've changed their platform over the years. At first it was basic. If you like what you see, I got my Patreon. You can always sub that. $5 a month. You don't have to. No pressure there. And stop sharing. Share. All right. Just gonna watch it. Copy. Bear with me. I'm like so new to this shit. Like, post it. Now, it won't even let me post it. So, channel. Yep. Oh, Howard Stern. Yeah, so this guy. Howard Stern. Oh, my God. He's another polarizing figure. You either like Howard Stern or you hate him. And I think a lot of people hated him, because of, the fact that, he ran for governor. And then he eventually pulled out, because, he said it was a joke. All right, let me at least copy paste my channel. I don't know why it won't let me copy paste, the live stream. Look at this guy. I mean, yeah, I'm well known on Cellufun because I've been known as the troll, and mocospace. That's another one. I'll do another video on that. But you can see how we're live. We're in the chat, and let me just give you a brief synopsis. All right, so obviously, there's all these games. The popular ones are, Vampire Rising. Okay. So that one, Mobile Wars, that was the first one I actually really started getting into. And what some people used to do is they would have a main avatar, and then they go make a lower one, hang out on the lower one, and then they do this thing called ghosting, where if you get kicked from groups, you just join with an alt and then fucking open up some other window and then go back and then you're posting as your main. And I've covered this in a previous video how the definition of ghosting has changed over the past, couple or so decades. When I first, and you can see how there's all these other games. They're just avatar games like Cyber Wars, missions. That's really all they are. In fact, I'll just fucking do this one just for shits and giggles. So that's that. I did a mission. Woohoo! Yeah, but everybody's just bouncing around. But I mean, you can. I'm not expecting anybody to hop in this chat. If they do, great. That'll definitely that definitely be pretty fucking cool if people hopped in the chat. And it's kind of fascinating. I must confess, even though it's a gaming site, you always get curious to see the person behind the keyboard. I'm not gonna lie. I know it may seem weird. I got one on my tracker video. This one's about my Geo tracker. I noticed I've been getting a few hits off of that. Because again, that's such a unique vehicle. And again, people are just talking about technology. And okay, so this guy, it's around 2004, download audio. So that's one of the first. Let me get back to the definition of ghosting as I got sidetracked. First time I heard ghosting used as a slang term was when I worked in the lawn care company, True Green. This was back in 2005, 2006. And the term ghosting meant, you would show up at a customer's house but not do the service. And, mind you, I've obviously worked in the industry, so I know that when you're out doing applications like ferret, lime, all that stuff, I never got my pesticide license, so I couldn't get that far into it. But when you're doing all those applications, especially in the hot fucking weather, drinking a fucking gallon of water every day, if not more, and not even have to piss, you're gonna fucking stink. So shower gonna be fucking covered in different lawn chemicals. And the ghosters, and I've seen many of them ghost. They would start at 7, which is the start time, right? They'd get their list of all the customers they have to do, and they're back by 3:30. Still smelling like a fucking newborn baby. So the term ghosting, and it also carried over to sales, where you'd go and just fucking do fake knocks. You just put down that you knocked on the door, even though you didn't. You just fucked off all day. And, as time went on, I, got let go from that company, whatever. The term ghosting carried over into this site, Cellufun, and it had a different meaning. When you would, again, if you get kicked out of someone's group, and I've been kicked out of a few of them, And I would do ghost, and many other people would ghost. And you join a group with a lower avatar that has no connection to you. Blah blah blah. Open up a window. There were different hacks and bends that you could do. Now, obviously, with a common platform, it's unlikely you could even do that. Um, and they've changed their rules and regulations. I mean, it's Cellufun. And as time went on, the next time I heard about ghosting was mainly in the dating world. When people instead of telling you that they're not interested or whatever, they just ghost. And that's a heated debate about whether it's acceptable or not. I personally think it's on a general case disrespectful, but there are times where it's absolutely necessary. Hey there, I got a chatter. Hey there, what's up? And I believe I subbed him. This might be a way to actually fucking, network with other people. And I've covered this shit in other videos. If every like small YouTuber hobbyist, they just network with each other, when they post content, maybe we can all just unite and just get out of this fucking slump that we're in with all the fucking bullshit going on in the White House. I mean, I'm just making this clear. I'm not trying to become a big time YouTuber, all that crap. I'm just giving it a shot. I know I've covered in some of my other videos. Yay! So, back to the definition of ghosting. As of late, it's been, geared towards the dating aspect, and someone just doesn't talk to you. They just don't say anything. And here's another description. Of each other's channels. Shit. Might as fucking well. So I know I get distracted, all that crap, but obviously, like I said, that you don't talk to the person, you don't respond, you just disappear. And it's a back and forth thing, and I've covered this before, where some people say they ghost because they're sick of having to explain themselves, and it ties into another point of view I have, that the action of you fucked it up for everybody else. And that's what it boils down to. I'm a Gen X. I come from a generation where you talk to somebody you're interested in, all that crap, or hell, even if it's a non-romantic thing, like friendship, just a regular friendship, right? They say not interested, and you just left them alone. And that's what it was. And again, I'll stick to my stance. On a general note, it's disrespectful, but unfortunately, that's the world that we live in. And now you got TV shows fucking trying to make a profit of it. Like Catfish. I guess Ghosting was another one. Lost Love. Um, it's it kind of disgusts me that people or that TV shows they want to make money off of people's misery. Shot. Shot. Knock knock. So we got this. So we got this one gentleman, chatting. All right. Go to channel. Let's just fucking make sure I actually stuff. I did. Yep. All right. So, yep. This is basically a. It's a gaming site. For me, it's just always been amusement. I think I'll do another one regarding mocospace because that was another site. And when I first joined Cellufun, everybody was like, what's your Fox or what's your mocospace, et cetera, because you want to see what people look like. I mean, not everybody's like that. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying everybody on this, or hell, everybody on Moco or Airg. That was another one that I'm using. Yes, that site's still around. Fucking Power Chat, all those fucking old school sites are still around. Surprisingly. And the last one mentioned, I was on there fucking back in 2002, 2003 when I got my first phone. And I can see people, chatting away. So, and I know they're talking about many different stuff. And, it's interesting how, the chat can actually, change from different stuff. Now, obviously, I'm going to be upfront. I don't post all my personal shit on the internet. Well, not anymore. I mean, I I used to have Facebook, all that crap. I got rid of that. And I found it, way too time consuming and not personal, not like a real personal connection. Yeah, I know. Here I am doing a fucking live stream on YouTube, but it's a different platform, and I'm also a member of different forums. I've been members of forums many times. I used to have Reptiles, and I was a member of all those forums back in the days. The early 2000s, and that was when everything was like bare bones, and I was also a member of different car forums for vehicles that I had. I had an S10. I was a member of that forum. I had Chevy Colorado. You name it. You get my point. Now I, now I'm now a member of Santa Cruz forums. Because I have Santa Cruz. I'm also a member of Suzuki forums because I have the Geo Tracker, which is basically a revat Suzuki sidekick. So let's see. All right, so I got the live. So yep. Yeah, you need 1,000 subs and 2K watch time. He's kind of incorrect based on what I'm looking at on YouTube. But yeah. My take on trying to be, a big YouTuber is that it requires real work. And obviously, if you've seen my videos, you'll see I'm just a random guy, with this phone, this like little chintzy fucking body cam setup. I don't have all them. I don't have all the fucking crazy like tech, editing shit. I'm bad with tech. Okay, I fucking did my first podcast. Like, I don't know how to do this fucking shit. But in a way, technology definitely has its advantages. And disadvantages. What would we do? Okay, this guy's posting out his number. Really? What the fuck? It's probably not even his. But anyhow, all these like gaming sites. Whenever you use a site, there was another one that didn't last as long. It was called Mobile Mingle. That like a lot of the old school sites. They they just went their way as a dinosaur. Like there was UPOC gone, Lifestyles gone. They just went their way as a dinosaur. Because things change, and there's some change that's good, and then there's some that is bad change. Not every change is going to be good. I mean, this is still here. People still calling in chat. It's not as hopping as it used to be. I'm not going to lie. If you go to my homepage, there's groups, and these all used to be hopping as well. But now it's like ghost town. But most people, they just hang out in the mall. And that's fine. But whenever I join like a forum or some site, it may sound weird to some, but there's always like a fascination with who's actually typing. And, it doesn't necessarily have to be romantic. Like, look at these avatars. These are all female avatars, but it might not even be a female behind the keyboard. I mean, I could make a fucking female avatar. Just suppose garbage. And it's funny you mentioned that. Back in the making avatars, I made some pretty funny ones, and some of them were female avatars. And yes, guys would be fucking signing those TMs. It's like, it's like shit. Now I can kind of see what the women have to deal with. Like, what the fuck? it's just a fucking avatar, it's a fucking computer graphic. Like, what the fuck is wrong with people? I mean, I'm no fucking James Bond, all right? I'm no fucking Chad. I can't escape that, all right? Um, I'm all but completely romantically invisible. Yeah, I don't want to say completely, I'm not, that guy at the bar that doesn't stand a chance. I'm only just a couple steps above that. I'm not trying to sound like a self-loathe or anything, just stating my observations. I'm not, whining about it. It just is what it is. I know I covered this in other videos. Like, well, maybe look elsewhere, look overseas. And it may be cooked over there too. But I mean, hell, I might fucking find better career paths overseas. You just don't know. But again, with this whole world that we live in, what I find is that it's easy to connect, but the really hard part for people, this is where it gets really, really dicey. The really hard part for people on any platform, whether it be Cellufun, YouTube, Facebook, whatever, is can you actually keep that connection? And it's unfortunate that it's mildly easier in the digital world than in the fucking real world. We become so fucking glued to the digital world that we forgot what it was like to actually talk to people in the real world. Like, case in point, I mentioned this in some of my other videos. Guy approaches girl is now viewed as creepy. So make that shit make sense. And I've always been old school, even though it's frowned upon. Now, obviously, I'm not gonna fucking, start walking up to, random woman now and being like, hey, baby, you know what I mean? Because it's frowned upon today, People don't really go to places to meet, barring meetups. I am on meetups. I have gone to a few events, and I'm not going to lie, that actually is a pretty cool setup. And there may be other organizations like that too. In fact, I'm considering starting a group on there, but in order to do that, you got to pay the man to start a group. But anyhow, the only chance most guys have with making the first move on a girl is on a fucking dating app. And we all know how those like to rip people off. So make it make sense, While technology has done a lot of good for us, it's also done a lot of bad. It's basically weakened our ability to actually talk to people. And, I've always been said that I have communication and connection issues. And I'm like, well, shit, look what the fuck everybody else is doing. Says the ones who fucking ghost. I mean, shit, maybe they need fucking, psychiatric evaluations and shit, But, I mean, in all fairness, like I said, the actions of a few guys, when they get rejection, really did fuck it up for everybody else. That's what it boils down to. They really fucked it up for everybody else. And it's unfortunate that we've gotten to that point. And honestly, I don't know which happened first, whether it was, creepy unhinged guys or girls just decided to ghost, or I know I mentioned this in a previous video about that one that, says she ghosts guys she's dating like it's her job and she ain't sorry. And, my only reservation with that article, it's way back. I can't find the article right now, but my reservation, I still stick to it, is why the fuck did you date him in the first place? You know what I mean? And the author actually posts a photo of herself, and I'm going to estimate if she wasn't quite my age, she was within a decade under. And again, maybe her. I'm going to take her experiences. I'm going to take her word for it on her experiences, with guys. And in theory, she still did believe in that. But the way people act nowadays, it just makes it impossible to really do that. Especially for women. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong, it can happen the other way too, and it does. Um, but it's just basically, the action of if you fuck that up for everybody else. And I'm not gonna get into the whole modern day women strong. I'm not gonna really get into that. And there's enough channels that I've talked about it before, but that's not going to be the focus of my channel. There's too much noise out there with that. There's too many other channels that made that their niche, and they get a lot of views, and they're doing something right. But that's not what my channel is about. I don't even know what the fuck my channel is about, to be honest with you. I just fucking post whatever rattles in my head. I mean, I notice, like I said, my previous videos. I'm sorry. My previous videos that I did regarding my two cars, especially the tracker, because that's technically an antique. They seem to be getting a lot of hits. Um, I know I've rambled on enough. I'm getting a little sleepy-eyed. Must be the old age thing. Anyhow, that's going to do it for this chat. I'll talk to you.